When most people think of America's first serial killer, they typically think of H.H. Holmes or the Axeman of either Austin or New Orleans. But the Harpe Brothers predate those guys by almost 100 years. Okay, so first off, we need to talk about pronunciation. It may have been pronounced harp or harpe or arp, but I'm saying harp. Also, we know some about the brothers, possibly cousins, possibly both, but it's rather difficult to separate fact from legend, and in some cases, we just don't know much. The brothers were supposedly born as Joshua and William Harper, Joshua probably sometime before 1768, and William probably sometime before 1770, and they were possibly born in Scotland and immigrated to the US at some point, or they were possibly born in Orange County, North Carolina. It was definitely probably one of those two, we think. Eventually, they began going as Micaiah and Wiley Harp, also often called Big and Little Harp. It's believed that their fathers took part in the Regulator War in North Carolina from 1765 to 1771 as a member of the Loyalist militia, and that since they fought against the colonists before, they weren't allowed to join the Continental Militia during the Revolution. We do know that Big and Little Harp were Loyalists. They also spent time as slave overseers before the Revolution, and eventually spent much of the American Revolution as part of a Loyalist rape gang that worked their way across North Carolina, primarily targeting patriots in their quest of rape, murder, robbery, burning things down, you know, the whole typical horrible war stuff. They were the guys that looted corpses on battlefields that they probably didn't fight in. They did supposedly serve under Banastre Tarleton in a few battles, like the Battle of Blackstocks and the Battle of Cowpens, but after the end of the war, they traveled with some Chickamauga Cherokee allies to the west of the Appalachian Mountains. They took part in several raids on frontier settlements from the early 1780s till the mid-1790s, when they left the company of their native allies, and by 1797, the Harps had began their spree of atrocities across Kentucky, Illinois, and Tennessee. They were accused of murdering a man named Johnson. They found his body in a river covered in urine and apparently ripped open, with the body filled and weighed down with stones. This would become their preferred corpse disposal method. From the Knoxville area, they fled north into Kentucky, entering the state on the Wilderness Road, where they're believed to have murdered a peddler named Peyton, taking his horse and belongings, as well as murdering two travelers from Maryland. When a man named John Langford, traveling from Virginia to Kentucky, was killed, the authorities went after the Harps, capturing and jailing them in the state prison, but they escaped. When a posse was sent after them, the Harps mutilated and killed the young son of a man that was helping the authorities. Yeah, it should be added here that they had no issue at all with butchering babies. In 1799, the governor of Kentucky put out a bounty of $300 for each of their heads. So they headed to Illinois, killing another 5 people along the way, and found themselves at Cave-In Rock, a cave, that was used as a base for river pirates, which were pirates that attacked boats on the river, so also The gang staying at Cave-In Rock was led by Samuel Mason, who accepted the 2 men as well as their wives and at least 3 children into the gang. However, the Harps were a tad too extreme for the gang, especially their love for taking victims up to the top of a cliff, stripping them naked, and pushing them off. So they were thrown out and forced back to eastern Tennessee, where they killed at least another 12 more people, including an entire family in a camp as they slept, several children, and as they continued to move into Kentucky, Big Harp killed his own infant daughter because her crying annoyed him by bashing her head against a tree. After a few more murders, they found shelter with the Stiegel family, where they killed a guest, the Stiegel's 4-month-old son, and Mrs. Stiegel when she screamed after watching her 4-month-old son's throat being slit because he was crying. After this, a posse of regulators that included the vengeful Moses Stiegel began to aggressively hunt them down, and on August 24, 1799, they succeeded. When they got the men captured, they ordered them to surrender, but they tried to run instead, so Big Harp was shot in the back and the leg before being being subdued. He was then questioned, where he admitted to 20 murders, and after he was finished confessing, Mogus Stiegel slowly cut his head off with a knife. The head would be stuck on a pike. Some accounts claim it was nailed to a tree at a crossroads near the Stiegel cabin as a warning. This area is still known as Harp's Head to this day. Little Harp escaped and rejoined the Samuel Mason gang, staying with them for about 4 years before being recognized while trying to collect the bounty on Mason, who had either died during an escape or Harp had just killed him. Doesn't really matter, because when Harp showed up with Mason's head, he was arrested, and in January 1804, he was hanged. His head was also cut off and put on a pike, this time along the Natchez Trace. And that was the end of the Harpe Brothers, who admitted to 29 murders, are believed to have committed over 50, and learned that bloodlust wasn't something worth losing your head over. Like and subscribe.